In today's gospel, Jesus is addressing the issue about Sabbath. The background is the third commandment among the 10 commandments. The Pharisees have oversimplified the commandment into a mere religious obligation to abstain from work on the day that they should be worshiping. Well, after all, yung Hebrew word Shabbat, which became the English Sabbath, ang meaning niya talaga ay pahinga, rest. Their simplistic interpretation is the day of worship is a strictly no work day because it is the Shabbat, the day of rest. Doing any form of work is an offense against the Jewish law and therefore a serious sin. Sabi ni St. Luke, the people daw were observing Jesus carefully as he was having a dinner at the home of one of the leading Pharisees. It means he probably already had the reputation of violating the commandments because he interpreted them differently. He found the perfect opportunity to offer his alternative reading of that part in the scriptures about the third commandment. The gospel writer says, Jesus happened now to be seated in front of a man who was sick. Ano yung sakit niya? He was suffering from dropsy. What kind of illness is that, you might ask? Ni-research kong konti, in English, the medical term is edema. In Tagalog, minamanas. Jesus begins by asking, is performing a cure on the Sabbath permitted by the law or not? Pwede ba o bawal ba? Wala silang sagot. Tahimik lang sila. And so, Jesus performs the healing session anyway, which was something that the Pharisees regarded as work violation. Afterwards, he asks them a silly question. Sabi niya, kung meron kang anak o meron kang baka na nahulog sa swimming pool on a Sabbath day, hindi mo ba siya ililigtas? Silly question, di ba? And I think he intended it to sound silly precisely to make his audience react. Let us make it sound even more ridiculous. Sasabihin mo ba sa anak mo who fell into the swimming pool and is struggling for his life, nalulunod na dahil di marunong lumangoy. And then you say, anak, sorry ayon sa batas, no work day ngayon. Swimming daw is a form of activity or work. So, sorry, I cannot pull you out of the swimming pool. It is a violation. I imagine Jesus saying this, tongue-in-cheek, kumikindat, and humoring his listeners. Sa text language, ang tawag dito, LOL, laugh out loud. I imagine everyone else laughing, except the Pharisees. Jesus is caricaturing the legalistic attitude of the Pharisees precisely to make it sound ridiculous. And he is succeeding. Kasi well-versed din si Jesus in the scriptures. Alam niya yung Biblia niya. He is aware that the third commandment does not actually say, thou shalt not work on your day of rest because it is your day of worship. Hindi naman yun ang nakasulat. Ano yung nakasulat? It says, Thou shalt keep holy your day of rest. Thou shalt keep holy your day of rest. In other words, thou shalt consecrate your Sabbath. Anong ibig sabihin nun? How do you do that? How do you consecrate your day of rest? The book of Deuteronomy's version on the Ten Commandments explains it to us in chapter 5, verses 14 to 15. Let me read what it is saying. Ito yung third commandment. The seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, either you, or your son, or your daughter, or your male slave, or your female slave, or your ox, or your donkey, or any work animal, or even the resident alien living among you. You shall not do work so that they may rest as you do. Hindi lang ikaw ang dapat magpahinga. Lahat. Bigyan mo rin ng pahinga. And then the writer reminds them how once upon a time they were slaves in Egypt and they were being abused by their masters. Hindi sila binibigyan ng pahinga. The masters gave them no rest. And this commandment is intended to change that injustice. In simpler language, what the commandment is saying is, be kind to those who have to work all the time while you enjoy the luxury of being able to rest several days without being afraid to starve. You keep your Sabbath holy, not just by taking a rest yourself, but by giving rest to people who have no day off because they are being oppressed or they are being exploited. If the husband says to his wife, it is Sabbath, or sa ating mga Kristiyano, linggo naman ngayon, huwag ka na maglaba, huwag ka na maghugas ng plato. Dapat ang kasunod, ako nang gagawa. Don't worry, I will do it myself so that you can take a rest. Wow! Believe ako sa husband na magsasabi nun. Or, think of a wife who says to her husband, you have worked all week and you're very tired. Just sit and relax. I will give you a foot massage so that you can get a good night's sleep. In short, I will give you rest. You see, Jesus is reorienting people's attitudes. What He is saying is, wag mo lang sabihin sa tao, magpahinga ka. Don't just tell them to rest. That is a tall order. Rather, give them rest. Or, in plain English, as we say, give me a break. Give them a little break naman. A paid day off. How do you expect daily wage earners who live a hand-to-mouth existence to take a rest on a Sunday? What will he feed his children? How do you give rest to a person with disability or a person with a long lingering illness? During the ancient times, how could a slave even take a rest? Gugulpihin siya. Wala siyang karapatang magpahinga. And yet, there are people who splurge on luxurious vacations and even flaunt it in their social media account na para bang pinangangaya pa. Imagine saying to an OFW who needs to accept 3 full-time jobs. Marami tayong followers sa ating Facebook page na OFWs. I'm addressing many of them now. Alam ko, marami sa inyo, ang trabaho hindi lang isa o dalawa, kung minsan tatlo pa. You think they like doing that? Walang pahinga. But they do it anyway. Why? Because they have to support their family in the Philippines. The commandment says, do not make your children or your servants or your animals work on Sabbath so that sila rin kasama ninyo magpapahinga. You see, the most sanctifying thing about the Sabbath is not really taking a rest, but giving rest to people who are weary. Kaya sinabi ni Jesus sa Matthew chapter 11, come to me, all you who are weary and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. I will give you rest. That is what the mission of Jesus is really about.